Bam, my guy, how are you?
Great, man. How are you?
I'm doing
great.
I'm doing really well. You know what I'm excited about? You are one of the only other actual podcasters that I get to actually interview. Most people are just civilians, not like I'm like not a civilian, but it's like non-podcasters. Yeah. You know how to hold a conversation, you know how to do a production. God bless you for coming, my guy.
I don't know if I'd consider myself a podcaster yet. We're still figuring it out, but I appreciate it.
You've done like 100 at least.
No, we just hit episode 46 goes live tomorrow.
Yeah, but you've done podcasts before. Like you're not. This is just your own personal project, but you've done dozens and dozens of people.
Yep. I just actually knocked out a guy. He just came down from Montana, and I did one with him, and then he had me on his at the studio. So we just
fantastic.
Yeah, it was a pretty good one.
It out. How'd you get into this? Because you do a lot of hunting stuff, you do a lot of vet stuff, you do a great production, you have great guests. Like, what was your entrance into?
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And like, by the way, I am hyper discriminatory with podcasts. Like, because everybody wants to have a podcast, and it's awesome. Like, it is great, but it's exceedingly difficult. It's like you took a portion of your house and you made a full studio. When I came in, I was like, okay, he's not messing around. Because most people have, it's either like a Zoom or remote communication, and that just breaks my heart. Like, you don't have a real human interaction. And then going into your space, like, oh, this guy thought through everything. Like, you got even the tape on the ground where the tripods are for the cameras. I was like, yeah, he's not messing around. He knows exactly where it's all supposed to go.
I'm an idiot. So
if you're listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other audio-only platform, please jump down and give it a quick follow and a review. The Ranch Podcast is the only podcast in the state of Idaho that has access to this many Idaho leaders, and your support is greatly appreciated.
Move something and be like, God damn, where was this? And I'll spend a day like trying to get it just right. So no, I went through and marked everything. I guess how it all started with my travels. I do a lot. We have a veteran organization, and I'm just embedded in a lot of communities through businesses and whatever. So I travel a lot, and I meet the most interesting people and hear the craziest stories. And I feel I've lived a very crazy life as far as military, adrenaline, almost dying several times, like just stupid shit that I've done throughout life, And I always meet these crazy people, and I'm like, God, man, that's such an incredible story. I would love to hear it. And then we talked about it for years. It was one of those things I should have, if I would have just launched when we initially did it, we would be rocking and rolling. And so I had a good buddy of mine at the time. He's got a production company, and he was doing some film work for me, and we would meet people. He's like, man, everywhere you go, you attract the wildest people and stories. He's like, we have to start recording these. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm so busy. He's like, I have the studio, just bring the guests and let's do this. And I'm like, I can't. And my wife was like, you're an idiot if you don't do this. Like, you're an absolute idiot. I'm like, all right, we're doing it.
Is your wife a big podcast consumer herself?
Zero. I don't think she's even listened to one of mine.
Okay. So like,
I'm just kidding, babe. Don't come.
Listen to me. Listen to me. How is it that because you ever see that meme where it's like, women always ask why guys start podcasts, and the response is like, same reason women start OnlyFans. Like, it's something that if you got it, you got it. Like,
why not?
If
exactly.
you can do it, you can do it. But most of the time, people are like, that's a dumb idea. So like, your wife not being a podcast connoisseur, why is she like, oh, this is a good idea?
Well, because she sees it as well. I mean, she hears the stories and the people that she's had run-ins with me and our businesses and things like that. And so she really was pushing it for it. And I love having a conversation with people. I love the ability to sit down and hear somebody's story, no matter what it is. And she gets to hear all these as well. So she was a big supporter of it. And then, once it started to grow, unfortunately for my buddy and I, his business started really taking off the production side wise. And he just got super busy with it. And he came to me one day, was like, man, I'm so sorry, but I'm booked for the next couple of months. And it's business. It is what it is. Right. And so we matched everything that they had. I bought a whole kit that you've seen, which put me back a lot. I was not expecting to go into it as deep as we did.
It wasn't just the whole monitoring setup you have up there with like the desk, the computers, all the things. I'm like, I kind of want this.
It's nice.
And you have your daughter there, your wife there. They're all checking levels. They're all like, just like, okay, is everything good? It's like, God, dude,
we've learned it together.
Operation.
We're figuring out the operation for sure. It definitely is. And it's been a lot of fun. And a big reason I really wanted to we weighed out the pros and cons of doing it in our house and converting, you know, our loft into a full studio. And one of the biggest pros to me was being able to have our children involved in it, and to have my oldest daughter that instead of her making TikTok, she's making
actual content. Yeah, right.
And she's learning how to film, how to edit, how to do the audio, the visual, and color correct. And then on top of all that, she's sitting and listening to every single conversation that I'm having with individuals, no matter what side of the spectrum on and what you believe in and anything like that. So it's cool because her and I will sit down afterward and she's like, "Oh my God, Dad, I've never heard anything like that," you know? And it's cool because she's, you know, we just had the conversation. She's like, "I've literally learned something from every single episode of your guests, just listening to them." And so she's pretty spoiled. She, you know, she live edits and everything that is done. So the second we're done and she hits finish, it's ready to rock and roll. And she just does all the uploading and everything there. But
so she's switching angles the whole time.
So I cover your camera. So I cover the guest camera because of the red light. And in the beginning, guests would be like, the whole time, because so all the back and forth is her. She's running that the whole entire time. So once we finish,
it's ready to go.
She plugs it in. She'll go through. God. She adds the front. She adds the back, and then she throws it in her AI shit, and it cuts everything. And then I get a folder, and yeah.
Dude, maybe I need to homeschool my kids so they can.
I would highly recommend homeschooling your kids. 100%.
You know what I appreciate about that is, like, I actually teach my sons to do editing as well, right? So like my 13-year-old, when he was 12, he would start coming to the studio afterwards, just like, "Hey man, you want to come?" And like, because they're all really into it and really interested in it. Yep. And instead of just having them on, you know, unfiltered tech doing whatever, it's like, let me teach you a skill, right? Because everybody says, "Hey, look, tech is the future." Yeah, but like just doing dumb apps on the iPad or something, that's not the future. Playing games is not the future. But if you want to talk video editing, like if my son really knows how to color correct and do all these things at the age of 13 on Final Cut Pro, it's like, that's something in the future. You know, like, so I love that you have her integrated into that, which is, look, you not only get the cognitive benefit of hearing what people are doing, but you're engaging in this production, like real production quality kind of experience.
Yeah. And starting from zero. So she had to learn it. It wasn't, she's not in classes for it. I mean, she is now. Even my youngest is in, you know, like the coding and all that stuff. Yeah. But when I threw this on her lap, I was like, "Hey, listen, I have no problem if you want to go get a job. You want to go be a barista. You want to go serve ice, whatever you want to do. You're going to do something. You're at the age, right? Or we can learn this together, and you can be the producer of a growing podcast right now. We're not stopping. That's not even an option." And she's like, I'm good. She's like, "I want to learn everything." It was like, "Cool, here's the programs," and start learning. And she'd sit up there and she's YouTubing everything. She's trial and error. She's, you know, putting clips in and she's learning how to color correct. I mean, she's almost done, I'd say 90% of it on her own, just learning it. And, you know, every episode we'll sit back and we critique it and like, "Hey, let's fix this. Let's do this." And so, yeah, it's been really cool to be able to watch her grow and then watch her mind start to shift into the problem solving side of things. Now it's not, "Hey Dad," or "Hey Mom, how do I?" It's like, "Hey, I couldn't figure this out, but I think I got it." It's like, cool. That's what I want to see, kid. Like that's where I want your mindset at, is the figuring out. Don't just come to Mom and I. Figure out. If you can't come up with a solution, cool. Then come to us. And that's where it's been really cool to watch her evolve as a 16-year-old teenager. And you know, now she's hooking and jabbing, and I love it. It's a lot of fun.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
I do a lot of work with different associations and like Chamber of Commerce, right? Boise Metro Chamber of Commerce. Gal Bobby Joe is the executive director, and I did an interview with her recently, and all of the associations are struggling with trying to figure out how to communicate online. And one mistake that they make frequently is they make these overproduced pieces of content, right? So many problems with overproduced pieces of content. One, you can't make very many of them. And anybody will tell you, it's like, listen, the overproduction and reach of one piece pales in comparison to having like 20 pieces that go out every other day for the next 40 days, right? Because one, it's like the cycle is just too fast. It's like, listen, I don't even care how great it is. Like, odds of it going crazy, very slim compared to like 20 B plus clips. And beyond that, the overproduction is the opposite of authenticity, because people know when something's really hyper produced, they're like, this isn't real. Like that's the concept. Like, this isn't even a real clip, but the capacity to produce an authentic conversation, authentic human to human interaction is things that people are looking for. And they all want that style of content. The fact that your daughter, when she like goes into the workforce at 18, or if she goes to college, 22, whatever it is, she's like, I got this in my back pocket. I can produce a full thing. You bring the talent, you bring the guest. Or I'll be the talent and guest, or, whatever it is. That's going to be wild.
That's what I'm really looking forward to. Yeah. And I think us as parents, a lot of us lose track that we're raising adults. My wife and I always looked at it like we're not raising children, we're raising adults. We're going to treat them as children through their certain stages and phases of life. But at the end of the day, I want to put out children, adults, into society that are able to contribute, that are going to be an asset, not a liability, not a problem, not draining, living off systems. Like I wanted one day, I hope it never happens, but when my kids, want to spread their wings and leave, that I could be like, cool, they have the tools, they have the knowledge, at least in certain aspects where they can go and get a job. I mean, for her to be running a full podcast at 16 years old, I'm like, kid, you're ahead of all of your peers.
Right.
They sit in school all day. Half of them are sleeping because they're up all night. They're not paying any attention. You're learning. You're done with your school in 2 hours, and then you're knocking out a podcast. You're learning all these systems and programs and editing and all that stuff. I'm like, Chrissy, I know this isn't your probably your dream job.
Yeah. Get a different job though. You'll find out how much this is a dream. Like you want to be a barista, or you want to have the know how to produce all this stuff. Like I'm going to tell you right now, this is going to be your dream job real fast.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't what you looked like, but I'm just telling you right now, like as an alternative working at Target, it's not so bad. Nice air conditioned room, sitting in front of a computer. You can text message while you're doing it. It's fun.
Bringing her food, like
sipping on your coffee. Yeah. You think young Jamie on Rogan's like, well, it's not my dream job. I really want it. Like, no.
Yeah. No. That dude's like, this is the greatest job of my life.
Could you imagine being him? Like just having just randomly happenstance onto a production like that. When again, like he was probably really, really skilled before, Rogan ever met him, or else he wouldn't have got connected. Like Rogan's a pro, but just being that guy who was like, okay, I'm holding on to this.
I'd like to know when he started, how old was he? And we tell her that all the time. We're like, hey, this isn't your thing. And we did have like a come to Jesus, but I told her because I'm not the easiest person to work for, and especially as a dad, and I can imagine, but I'm very fair. And I'm like, hey, I have deadlines and how I want things run. I need things ahead of time so they can get to the guests, and guests can overlook, spelling and make sure everything's worded right, just for their, out of respect for a guest. I don't want to put anything out that's doesn't represent them. So I have like timelines. And so, I've told her, I'm like, listen, like if you're doing this because you think you have to, you don't. By all means, I can go to India and I could have these things edited in a day, and it just kind of cost me less than what I'm paying you.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want you going anywhere, but I was like, if you ever do and you ever want the opportunity, please, like you can go and try anything you want. She's like, I'm good. Nope, I'm good. Cause she sees her friends and what her friends are doing for work, and they're not happy.
Dude, I'm telling you right now, especially having a skill like this that like I've always been self-employed. I've never had a job. I did work in the tutoring center when I was in college. Yeah. Obviously I had a job there, but the second I left college, I've never been employed by somebody. Yep. So it's always been this process of like, okay, do you have a skill set that the world values? And right away when I graduated, I was like, oh, I can tutor kids. I really enjoy it. They really enjoy it. That's a skill set the world values. And I got hooked into that essentially industry, the auxiliary education industry. Great. Once I left that, it was this real dark thing of like, do I have any value? Like, damn it. And slowly I've worked, again, reestablish myself as having a valuable thing that the world wants. That's a really important thing to get your head wrapped around from a younger age, which is like, look, this is how the world works.
Yep.
You have to have something that people will take a $5 bill out of their pocket and hand it to you and be like, do that thing, and here's the money for it. And that exchange it's almost like not knowing where your food comes from. Like I worked at Applebee's when I was in high school. I was 18 with the flare, like I had the buttons on and stuff. Like
not enough flare.
God, oh my God. Like it's straight up like that. Like I had this glowing, anyway. And to me, it was like, I was removed from my value. Like I didn't get why I was getting money. It's like, okay, I brought the plates over here. Like whatever. Like I was nice to somebody. Like how was your day going?
You're just going by the numbers.
Yeah. But there was this weird, like, I don't understand this system, right? when it came down to, can you get my kid's test score higher? You can. Here's some money. I'm like, got it. Understand. I love that exchange. I love that. It's like, it's really clear. I'm not removed from it. I'm not like alienated from my labor. I either have value or I don't. Now that's a very brutal way for young people to make their way in the world. But as an adult, it's like, this is it, man.
Yep. And I think if she can learn, I've just put in all this work, I have hours in this episode and everything I've done, and then she receives, you know, obviously making money off of it. It's more satisfying, and she's more grateful of her money. And when they're working like that and it's an actual full-time, she's up there once her schoolwork's done. I mean, obviously off of her timelines and how fast she wants to get things done, but like, she busts it out, or it takes it's a lot of editing that goes into it. Like, she gets to, it's her work, and it's way more fulfilling for her to be able to put out a product of an episode and be like, and sit back and be like, oh, Dad, look what I did for this one. Like, the colors are getting better, and you know, and so, and they get to see that growth, and you know, and it's probably, like I told her, and you know, and we just said, it's probably not her dream job right now, but she'll realize it one day how good it was. I hope she sticks around forever, you know, and we can grow this thing to something, you know, massive, and I get to, and I have my kid by my side doing it. So,
dude, when I was 16, I was throwing papers. Like, it was raining. I remember one time we got this barbecue place, and I ate way too much barbecue, and I got sick the next morning. So it was 5:30 in the morning, and I was literally, my mom helped me that morning because I was like, Mom, I'm really sick. She's like, all right, I'll come help you.
Yeah.
So I'm literally wandering down the street. It's dark. It's winter time. I'm sick, and finally, like halfway through, I'm like,
yep.
And I'm wearing the paper bag, so I have to hold the papers to the side so I can barf on somebody's lawn. It's like, that's what I was doing at 16 for like, I don't know, $5 a day, right? Like, I made $150 a month. It was $5 a day.
Yeah, these
like,
kids
how
now.
did I miss that? Like, $5 a day. What the hell? Like, that was terrible.
But for us, it was the greatest thing ever, you know? I mean, yeah, I look back on my jobs, and I told her, I was like, I was a busboy getting screamed at by this drunk guy that owned this business, and my buddy and I just ran amok at that age. And I'm like, here you are. I'm like, God, like what? How times have changed. Yeah,
it's Eric. I keep coming back. It's like so nice and comfortable, temperature controlled in your studio. It's very, very comfortable.
Thank you.
Your podcast is called Wild Chaos.
Yeah,
and in recent years, I do jiu-jitsu. I've done it for 15 years. I love every second that I get to train, and I got my black belt 10, almost 11 years ago. And one thing that I started leaning into in recent years is like, when you get to black belt, you know, enough moves, you know, you are good at execution. You got like a vision, right?
Yep.
But the guy who gave me my black belt, Kai Otera, who's, you know, this big world champion, he's like, listen, it's going to take a couple years for you to get it. And I didn't understand at the time, but probably like 5 years in to being a black belt, I'm like, okay, it's seeing through the chaos. Like, yeah, I can execute these moves. Yeah, I can do these things. But it's like, I want to insert chaos and a scramble.
Yeah. Because
I know in this moment of chaos, I'm going to be able to pierce through the weirdness and like come in for a submission, or like get an advanced position. And I love that concept of like this wild, chaotic mess that we're all kind of swimming around in.
Everybody has it, man.
And if you can see through the chaos, if you can embrace, if you need everything in the world to be like just in the right place, it's like you're going to lose 100 times out of 100. But if you can embrace this wild insanity and pierce through it and see to the point where you get ahead, like, that to me, I was like, God, man, that's awesome. I feel like that's what you, in this mess of humanity, it's like you talk to people who've been able to rise above the chaos and pierce through it and get to the finish line.
And a lot of guys are, like, when I say guys and girls, the number one thing that people say to me when they come to a podcast is like, man, I feel like I should be here. Like, I'm not that cool. And they end up having the most incredible stories of trials and tribulations when they were, you know, kids or adults, and losing everything and being blown up or being shot, or law enforcement and veterans and business and entrepreneurs. Everybody's got a wild chaos story, and it's how you get through it and how you overcome everything. And it's crazy to me. Like, I have a guy right now, I'm been trying to convince him to come on the show, and he's like, man, I'm just not, I'm not a vet.
I'm not that guy.
I'm not cool enough to come on the show. And his ex-wife tried to murder him, and she shot him and got away with it, and he almost died in a parking lot. I'm like, this is wild chaos, bro. Like, what do I have to do to convince you that this is, he's a buddy and we work together, and he's just like, but I'm not a vet. I feel like I shouldn't be on the show. I'm like, dude, I've had anybody and everybody on. And I'm like,
wait, his ex-wife shot him and like left him for dead in a parking lot.
In a car, in an off-duty police officer or firefighter, like pulled him out as his femoral artery sucked up in him, shot him in the leg, boom, grabbed his gun, shot him with his own pistol, and then got away with it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And
I'm like, that's wild chaos.
He didn't press charges?
He tried. Her dad's a very rich dude and is connected with the cops out here.
Oh,
this is local.
My God.
Yeah.
What did he do? What did he do to get shot in the leg? Don't tell me. I don't want to know. We're not going to cloud the case. The point is that's like the insanity of humanity.
It is. But everybody's gone through something of some sort that you were like, oh my God, like how did we get through that? Like I have a guy that he's never even had a speeding ticket, and he had a huge hunting outfit up in Alaska, and some guys that weren't hunting with him asked him to help ship some bear hides back to wherever they were. And he's like, yeah, no problem. Ship some back. So sometime later, he's sitting at home here in Idaho, and SWAT and all these suited up dudes are jumping his fence and kick his door in. And he's like, what the hell's going on? And they get him for this huge poaching operation. They thought he was like this ringleader to shipping bear hides all over, which is the Lacey Act. If you cross state lines with a illegal animal, I mean, you're done. So they get him for all these felony charges. These guys, like I said, never even had a speeding ticket in his life. And now he's in prison in Washington serving some time. And he gets in, and he's in with all the different gangs because he's just this giant, big white dude with no history, no problems, but he's a very, very successful entrepreneur. I mean, the guy's made hundreds of millions through Costco and selling furniture that he's building in his garage, like sleeping on the floor. Crazy story. And then he ends up teaching all the different gangs finances, and he's helping them get their life back on track, and he's giving them spiritual advice and having like Sunday services. And so he like got in with all these different groups in the prison system, and they all looked out for him. He's helping the cartel with finances and just crazy shit.
He's in prison right now.
No, he got out. He's out. But yeah, and so
how long was he incarcerated?
It wasn't a long time, but it was enough for somebody that's like never had any violations in their life.
Listen,
straight edge.
An hour is enough for me.
That's what I'm saying.
Straight. Like, tell me it'll be an hour. I'll do whatever you want. I ain't gonna. I saw this film recently, Shot Caller.
Okay.
That I actually thought was really well done, and it portrayed very much kind of like you're articulating. Here's this dude who's an alpha in real life.
Yeah.
Who understands the system, understands how to be successful, and you put him in a horrible situation, and he still figures out a way to be successful, to integrate with the community, to bring up the community. You know, that's wild. It's crazy too that he made all this money and he fucking shipped bear hides.
And that's what got him taken down.
Like, don't do that for anyone. Don't, like, somebody asks you to do something. It's like, you should be able to go to UPS and ship that yourself, my guy.
Well, how it works up there in Alaska is you have to be licensed to be able to ship certain things. And so these guys came from another outfitter, but if the outfitter did their job, which they're supposed to, they're all tagged, stamped, they have all the paperwork, which he admits, he's like, I didn't do my due diligence because they came from another outfitter. I just automatically
assumed that they were
done. Everything's legal. And he was like, they're already boxed, ready to go. So he's like, I just shipped them. That's all he did. He just shipped. And so they tried to get him for this huge poaching ring. And yeah, he ends up doing time. He had a brand new baby at home, left his wife. Like,
Did his wife wait for him?
Oh yeah. She's solid. So she's a great person. It was just hilarious.
Dude, that's wild.
Yeah. Walks in the court in jeans and cowboy boots and a button up and ends up going shipped to Washington. He had to go turn himself in. Yeah, shit like that.
Dude, the hole you have to go turn yourself in is pretty wild. Like, you got to get on a plane.
I wouldn't do it.
You'd be gone. Like, you're going to like the Canadian
I'm
Outback
not
or something?
shit, and I don't know. I'll figure it out at that point, but...
Dude, didn't you read Crime and Punishment?
No.
Like, it's like this guy commits this heinous act, and the detective eventually figures it out, and he's like, listen, you think you're going to, like, run off to the woods? He's like, you're not going to fucking run off. This is like Russia, like 100 years ago. And he's like, you're not running off. He's like, listen, you go out there and you think you're going to make it, and then you realize, like, you like showers, you like food, like you like society. That's not you too. Like, we can listen, we can bring you back into society. Like, you got to do some time. Just tell us what you did. And it's fine. And listen, even in prison, you're going to get 3 squares and a shower. Like, you don't want to be in the woods. And the guy like just wears him down. Eventually he's like, yeah, totally. I killed her. Like, yeah, 100%.
In Russia, they're like,
right. And the real point of that book is that he couldn't stand not, like, he committed this heinous crime. He killed this woman who was like this reprehensible, terrible, like, pawn lady in Russia, right? Everyone hated her and you had every reason to hate her. But he also killed her, like, not in self-defense. He just killed her, right? Okay. And so he like broke this rule that everyone knows, like, normal people integrated in society, like, you can't just do that. So he gets away with it. He hides the evidence, the whole thing. And then he's like waiting for the cops to come and realizes they're never going to come because he successfully got away with it and he can't take it. That's the punishment. Like, he did this crime, but the punishment is so internalized that he was like, he can't live with it. He's like, I have to do my time so I can be like not absolved, but like I can get back into the integrated society.
I'm sure something like that would weigh on you quite a bit if you weren't some psycho. So
yeah, well, it worked. I mean, it's a very famous book, man. So apparently a lot of people agree. I mean, they never caught me, but whatever. I don't feel bad about it either.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So where do you find the people you have interviews with? Do you just like run into them?
A lot of people are recommended. You know, it started with a couple people, then, you know, I have a form that they fill out and they're like, do you recommend anybody? And, you know, like with you getting in with Raul.
Yeah.
We got a mutual friend and he was like, man, you got to sit down with Todd. He goes,
get a form. You have a real system, bro. You have
I'm an idiot. I am an idiot,
you have
bro.
A form. Like, I'm like, yeah, whatever. Just like keep peeling back the onion.
Dude, I have so much going on in my life with everything else. I'm such an idiot. Like I'm one of those people, like, if, you know, you see these guys like, if I could do it, you can do it. I am literally one of those people. Like, if I can do this, anybody can do it. And we went, you know, obviously above and beyond with it, but yeah, it just comes down to streamlining for me. I don't know if it's the military side of me, but I have to have, and that way it helps me, you know. And then when I get a form in and you fill it out, it gives me recommendations. It gives you your date that you're available. It kind of asks a lot of those questions for me. And then that goes to my daughter. So then she has all the information on a guest.
Stop. You already have like a crazy, like, I can't even like, no, it's like your workflow is just like, and again, I get it. Like from all sides, it's like from the guest side, from the producer side, like it's beautiful. Like,
and I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if there's a better system. This is in my mind. Perfect. I'm like, this what works for me. And that's the advantage of working for yourself. It's like, okay, I'm going to build what works for me and make things as streamlined that helps us as, I guess, a production company now. It's a podcast. It just helps. Let
me ask you something. And we've both gone through this. All right. And you don't know what it's like until you give it a shot, but the average podcast, I think, only lasts 6 episodes. Yeah. And I always tell them, like, this is the pattern. All right. You do the first one. You're really excited about it. It takes you all day. Takes you all day. Maybe takes you more than all day. I don't know. Takes you a long time. You do the research. You buy the equipment. You're super excited. And you like send it out to all your friends. And you get like 80 views. Right. And you're like, yeah, dude, 80 people. That's awesome. And your friends are all encouraging you. They're like, dude, this was great. Do it again. Don't stop. Like, you're like, yes.
Love it, dude. It's so great.
You publish the second one and like you get 45 views, not even 50. You get 45. And you see your friend, you're like, hey, did you get that link I sent you? They're like, oh yeah, I did. I gotta get it. I gotta get him. Like, yeah, man. He's like, yeah, I really like the first one. Awesome. Okay, but you're gonna watch it, right?
Yep.
And you go to the third, and by the time you hit the third, you're like, man, I only got 4, whatever. Like, I'll do the third.
Yeah.
You get the third, then you get 25 views. And then it's like, by the time you're on the 4th or 5th episode, you're mad hitting record because you're like, nobody's even watching. Nobody even cares. Like, what am I even doing? Like, this is dumb. And then you get to episode 6, you're like, you don't even care on episode 6. You're like, this is the last episode. Forget it.
This is bullshit.
You may not even publish it. You did such a bad job on episode 6.
I don't like the way I sounded. We're done with it.
Whatever, I'm done. And you just give up. You have to. I do believe that there are a lot of people that could make good podcasts that have good perspectives, but there's a crucible you have to go through in creation.
It's the gauntlet, man.
And getting past the point where you judge yourself by how many views you get and believing in something that it's like, I don't believe in my podcast today, this next month, or even this year. I believe in the podcast. I'm going to have it year 4. And you got to believe in year 4. and you got to cut. Like I'm 2.5 in. I'm not even at year 4 yet. You know, this is my second podcast, so I've been doing it for a while, but I still have that conversation with myself where it's like, listen, I'm doing 4 to 6 episodes a day right now, covering the legislative session.
Yeah.
I don't even believe in the podcast today. I believe in it when everybody's running for governor in a year and a half. Because in a year and a half,
It's gonna blow up.
you bet your ass, like it's going to be the only place where people will see all of the candidates in a long format, non-threatening manner.
Yep.
Right. Maybe there'll be another one by then. I don't know. But I believe in that. Show, right?
Exactly.
How did you get to the point where you believed far enough in advance that you were able to get through all of that?
Still don't believe.
I still don't believe it.
Still don't believe.
I'm faking it till I make it.
Well, I mean, 100%. And I saw some guy the other day actually like trashing that, saying like, if you ever use fake it till you make it, that's the biggest lie to yourself. I'm like, fuck, I don't know what I'm doing. We have no idea what we're doing, and we're faking it till we make it, and it's working. But yeah, no, dude, it's one of those things, like it's a lot of pressure now having my kids staring at everything, because it's not just me anymore. Now it's her and I. And so but I'm the same way. I'm like, God, kid, wait till next year. Wait till next year at this point. Wait till we hit episode 100. I'm like, look at what we're going to be. And it's fun to be able to go back and watch. If you look at it, we'll go watch old episodes. We're like, oh my God, Dad, like the first episode that when we moved from having a production company, my buddy's company, to us doing it, it's the most cringe shit you've ever seen in your life.
So bad.
My buddy's mic wasn't even on. I don't even think it's just picking up his audio. And my daughter's over there just mashing buttons and like stopping us through the episode. So, but her and I will go back and I'm like, oh my God. And even 3 episodes ago, like we look at it, she's like, oh my God, Dad, look at the color difference.
So much better.
And that was kind of it.
Yeah,
and
you guys, your clips are getting better.
Thank you. Thank you. And so it's, it's a slow growth, especially working with a kid and but it is what it is. I really enjoy it. But yeah, it was just us watching. And then, on Spotify at the end of the year, they give you your breakdown and all that stuff and all your numbers. And I personally don't get on, I don't know how you publish yours, through Buzzsprout or anything like that.
I use Buzzsprout. Yeah.
So I don't even look at numbers. I don't pay attention to any of that stuff, because for me, I don't care, right? Like how I'm investing in Wild Chaos 4 years from now, 3 years from now. Like that's where I'm gonna be like, okay, now we're rolling. Like we've made it past that hump. And that goes with anything, even like our bread company or anybody that's starting anything. That first year sucks. The first 2 years suck. And I've started several businesses with my wife, and it's not fun. Like these people are like, I want to be an entrepreneur, and I want to do it myself. I mean, you say no, you don't. It's hilarious, but at the same time, it's like it's the greatest feeling once you get past. It sucks, man. Like it sucks. And anybody that's like, oh my God, this was the greatest time of my life, they're either way along in their journey or they haven't gone through the full journey yet, because you're going to have those trials and tribulations where, fuck, what are we doing this for? God, we're hemorrhaging money on this. Like, when is the ball going to get rolling? When do we start getting traction? When are people going to start catching on to this? And you got to take all that out of your head and just be like, okay, let's go. There's no goal. Like I have goals of things I want to hit. Guest wise, like I want to be able to sit down with, I have my dream list of guests, but I'm not expecting that for 4 years. Like that's my goal. I want to get to a size in 4 years so I can have my dream guests on. Yeah. And it's part of the growth. And it's like, I saw the numbers this year from Spotify and ranking how we ranked in podcasts in the world. I'm like, I look at my kid, I'm like, kid, we're 8 months old and we're ranking in over top 25% of podcasts on this platform, one of the biggest platforms in the world. And we're in it and we're not even. Yeah. And I'm like, Chrissy, like, just wait.
Keep going.
And you just can't quit.
There's a piece of, I think my maturity as an entrepreneur that has come in the last like 6 to 12 months where I have been so thankful for the adventure.
Yes.
Right. And it's, as a younger person, it was like, listen, if I could get an easy day, I'm taking it twice, and in the last year, it's really been like, do you realize how fortunate you are to have the range of emotions on a daily basis? Like you are down and then you're up and then you're down. Like I went into a meeting a month ago and I was like, this is it. This is going to be a great meeting. Like I'm a crush. This is going to be great. And it was literally like I got held down and beat the hell out of for the entire meeting. And I left but I was laughing and I was like, dude, this is the greatest adventure of my lifetime.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't have gone from happy to sad, back to happy and appreciative in any other thing. And that's the nature of this beast, where it's like, dude, this is wild. It is wild. Success is not guaranteed. In fact, it's likely not coming, but like, you're definitely not even gonna have a chance if you stop now. Just like keep going. It's so wild. You hear all these motivational speakers and you gotta do this, you gotta grind, you gotta, and it's you just can't stop. It's not like, oh, how did you make it? If you ask any of just made it. We never stopped. They kept pushing forward. Right.
And you just, that's all it takes is not accepting quit ever. And there's times where, I mean, obviously if, there's things that are spiraling out of control and they're costing you more and you're going to go bankrupt over it. I understand there's going to be those scenarios, but just because you're not selling a ton of your product in it every week and you're not hitting certain goals, and it'll take off. It'll eventually just, and I explain it to my kids. It's that little snowball on the top of that mountain and it's barely turning. And those are years. And then once it takes that little momentum, that might be year 5. And then it just starts growing as it's rolling down that mountain. It's just picking up momentum.
Yeah. Then you can't even stop it.
But I go, that little bit of a turn where you're barely starting that, you can't even see that snowball rotating. Those are 2 to 3 years.
Right. And
then once it falls off and it goes, I mean, then you're off to the races, and then you're right there. Look who you're sitting down with. I mean, sitting in these seats is, you've had so many important people that have everything to do with our state and everything we're involved with here.
And everything with Idaho.
And it's incredible to watch. And so it's the same thing though. But I mean, your first episode launching this and moving here, you weren't going to be like, I'm sitting down with Governor Little and we're going to.
It was my neighbor, Connor. It was terrible. I didn't know anything about color correction. I didn't I had it slammed up against the brick wall. I had these like circle lights going, like the whole thing. Right. And then it took me all day to produce. Now I'm doing 4 to 6 a day.
That's incredible.
The interview and the production, because I've figured out the system properly. I don't use AI for anything either. Like I'm like, listen, AI to me is like scrambled eggs in the microwave. It's like, it'll come out. It'll be cooked, but it's not like in a cast iron pan with butter. It's
great for certain things. Like, so when it comes to us, my daughter, she took after my wife, thank God. As far when it comes to writing and being able to articulate and do all that, which I'm very grateful for. But I mean, there are some programs when it comes to cutting and all the clips and all that stuff. Oh, I tell her, I'm like, whatever you can do, use it. And there's some pretty good programs out there. You just throw your episode in, your link, and it'll cut everything. Obviously she goes through and she goes and corrects all the words and has to go through, because like you said, it's scrambled eggs. They're not going to get it right. So, but it definitely eliminates a lot of the time for it. But yeah, it's one of those things, like when it first came out, I was 100% against it. I think it's the gateway to the devil. I mean, you could figure out anything on it. But at the same time, I mean, it's the future.
It's a tool. It's another tool. And I get really hyper focused on, like, if I look at the episodes I do with somebody, I'm like, all right, look, there are 2 or 3 really important sentences in here somewhere. What are those 2 or 3? And if you look at a 30-minute episode, for me, it's like, I have to find those things, because I'm the only one that knows what's relevant. I'm not the only one, but I have the best shot of knowing what's relevant for what the person said and what the meaning of the episode was, or the message they're trying to get across. So if I just throw it to like Opus Clips, it's like, Opus Clips will find something to put out, but you can't mess around with the viewers. You don't have time. They don't have the energy. They don't have the interest. It's like, listen, you gotta be on point. Like, for me, when we talk about podcasting and the difficulty of just keeping going, do you, like, for me, this is one of those things where it will only the people that have been willing to give it like 10 years will reap the benefits of it. And that's like, I started mine when I was 40, and my idea is like, look, by the time you're 50, like, you take this decade of your 40s, by the time you're 50, you're going to have something that it's unlikely anyone else, unless they put in that decade, is going to have. And even with people putting in decades, there are plenty of podcasts that exist that there's just an X factor to it. There's just like a thing that it's like that. There's one ingredient or one tweak, or there's something there, and it's not production value. I know a guy right now, I know several people who have way better productions than I have. They got like guys, they got the whole stick, and it's not resonating. Like they don't quite get it. And do you think that just the fact that it's one of those things you cannot fake, like to me, it's kind of like becoming a black belt in jiu-jitsu. There is nothing you can do to fake that. Like you either have it or you don't. You can't buy it. And it takes years. Like if you're doing it, I have a buddy Max, who's a friend of mine from college, went into the military after college, got out, went and did an MBA. He wandered his way into jiu-jitsu at like 39. And I had already been in it for a long time. He was like, I put on my white belt today. I was like, yes. I was like, yeah, but Max, you're in it for 10 years. He's like, well, how do I get it faster? Like, there is no getting it faster. Like there is, for the rare people that are fortunate enough, like I have a very, very good memory. I can run back seeing somebody do something like a VHS tape. Like I can tell you the day it happened. That allowed me to get better faster. And I had an incredible teacher that allowed me to get better faster. But that was freak luck. I was just born with that. Most people, it's like, there's no way it's going to be 10 years. Do you think that that's something that people recognize when they get into it?
I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, I can't wait to see where we're at in 10 years, but it's, I don't know, I haven't really thought that through as far as, other people, but for us, like, I don't ever plan on stopping. I want to grow this and have, build out a studio one day. And like, those are our future plans for this. So
we should go in on a warehouse. We should have like a gym. We'll get rolling mats in there. Do you train? You don't train jiu-jitsu, do you?
No, actually.
So I teach you some jiu-jitsu.
So I fought for the Marine Corps. I was a martial arts instructor.
There you go.
And did all that for years. And then when I got out, I walked away from it all. So, but my kids, they got into it. We're going to start here, I think this week, get them into a gym. I might just start it with them because, I just hit 40.
We could go in on a gym. We'll each have our own boxes on the ends of the gym. We'll have our giant warehouse. We'll have like a shooting range. We'll have the whole thing. We'll have like a Rogan, but it'd be like the wild chaos on the ranch. It'd be fantastic.
Let's do it. I'm in. It's actually, my buddy and I have talked about it. There's these great little, they're like almost like storage units, but you got the pull open doors and you could build them out and everything. I'm looking for one for like one of our, an office for us. And I was like, God, you could build out a bunch of studios in here and you just rotate podcasts.
Dude, you know what I need? I need a gentleman's ranch with a barn on it, right? Like I need a 2.5 acre ranch where like I got a house and a barn, and then I build it out in the barn. So when people are like, it's the ranch, I'm like, and it's literally in a barn. That'd be baller.
It is.
Oh,
it is.
God, man, we'll get there. What do you, speaking of ranches, Senator Tammy Nichols is trying to pass a chicken law right now. Are you familiar with this?
No, I'm not. So, fill me in on this.
So there's HOA. There's HOA restrictions on chickens, right? Like
it's bullshit.
She thinks so too. Because by the way, we stop HOAs from infringing on solar panels. We stop them from infringing on flags, political signs in your lawn, like all that stuff. They're like, no, you can't stop somebody who's living here from like flying the American flag or whatever flag they want, right? And so she's like, same thing with chickens, bro. So her bill is essentially like for every 1/5 of an acre, I think you can have 4 chickens. They can restrict you on roosters, which I get.
I don't want to hear that shit.
You don't want to hear that, but chickens.
Here's my argument. This is what I would push for is bees. Fuck the chickens.
But bro, don't you remember Macaulay Culkin?
Nah,
he died, bro. My girl, like bees everywhere.
I get it. Dude, I'm telling you, we have a beehive in our neighborhood in our yard. And we have a flow hive. It's incredible. I'm not even talking.
Wait, what's a flow hive? Is that like a brand?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I don't know shit
it's
about
weird
bees.
in the bee world.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got into bees is one of my like forms of therapy, in just being able to, I'm big in the gardening.
Bro, are you one of the beekeepers? You remember that? Did you see that crappy movie, Beekeepers?
No.
It's all about the assassins.
Yeah. I actually started it. It was so bad we stopped it.
So bad.
We didn't even finish it.
Bad. It's like the stoic dude who's like, here's your honey.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he's like a trained savage killer that's supposed to go outside of all law enforcement to kill the deranged queen bee.
Exactly.
I was like, bro, that's a stretch.
We stopped it.
That's an actor with only one. Like he's like Hugh Grant. He's got one thing.
One role.
One role. He can only play. He was in the Crank, that movie. Yeah, Crank. He's like, if you stop, you're gonna die. He's like,
every single movie's flipping slow motion in a car or something in every one of his movies.
At one point in that movie, Beekeeper, the other beekeeper comes after him to stop him, and she's got a minigun in the back of a truck. This purple hair mohawk in the middle of a gas station. She chopped down. And then he like flames her with the gasoline.
Of course.
Like it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Anyway, keep going. Bees.
I would love to sit down with her and have her push an act for bees. I mean, They're absolutely incredible to have in your yard and to be able to sit and to watch. And once you get into the bee hive itself and how it functions, it is the most fascinating thing you have ever seen in your life. And what's cool about the flow hive is you don't need to open up your hive. There's these big key and you kind of turn it, it cracks the frames.
Yeah, so the honeycomb goes like this.
And it literally just pours out of the back. And I mean, my youngest daughter's out there and I go and crack them and she'll sit there and just read a book while these jars are filling up and she'll rotate jars. And it's the greatest honey because these neighborhoods have millions of flowers. None of them are native. They're all these bullshit ass flowers that just everybody plants in their yard.
Macaulay Culkin though?
Nah,
the dude ate it.
You're fine.
Just like, what do you mean you're fine?
They don't even bother you.
Some poor kid who didn't you see Vikings? Right.
Yeah, like, I mean, if your kid's allergic to it, obviously, but I mean, like my neighbors have kids, a bunch of little kids next door, no issues at all. I'll be out there at the beehive and doing an inspection and the dad's like, hey, can we get some honeycomb? I'm like, go grab a plate. And literally he'll just and I'll pull a whole frame out and I'll cut a huge chunk and it just falls right on his plate. He's like, thanks. Like I pay all my neighbors off with honey. Nobody says shit.
Are you not supposed to have them in HOAs?
No.
Oh my God. But just kidding. You don't actually have a honeycomb. Okay. Yeah. I saw an ad, or maybe it was just a clip of the flow hives years ago on social media.
They're
somebody
badass.
just like boom. And all of a sudden everything, and they had this gal out there with a faucet just pouring up, filling up a mason jar. I was like, damn, dude, they're thinking of everything these days.
Yeah. So we have that, but I mean, we have a farm that's just out of town. And that's where we have all of our like normal everyday hives, like your normal frames. You got to go.
Wait, you personally have a farm?
No, I don't have a farm. We not lease, but we pay her off with honey too. She just gets we just give her whatever amount of honey she wants, and she lets us put a bunch of hives out on her place. So she's got a lavender and bunch of orchards and stuff like that.
Awesome.
So yeah,
so
you're
big into beekeeping,
bees, gardening, all that stuff. People are blown away once they learn, like, they know who I am. And I got into it a few years ago. I'm like, my whole yard in the summertime is a jungle. It is wild. Absolutely wild. Yeah. You got to come over and check it out. But bees are fascinating. How the hive functions. Every bee has its own role and position and how they communicate and how they build the honeycomb out. And it's fascinating once you get into it. Yeah, it's fun. I'm with you. I've always like, God, we got to fight the HOAs, and everybody should have, like, we have this spot in our neighborhood. It's just this where they didn't have enough room for, it's like the awkward little grass patch.
Yeah.
It's not quite big enough to put a house on. I'm like, why couldn't we put like a community garden or community beehives there where if you don't want to fuck with them, don't fuck with them. It's cool. Stay away from it. It's fine. But I mean, like our hives are right out our back door. You walk out and our hives right there. We have no issues with it. Like they don't bother you. It's obviously if you're not messing with them and you show them respect, they show you respect. But yeah, it's like imagine if all these neighborhoods all can do community gardens, beehives. I mean, look at what it would do to the community, bringing it together so everybody has something to work on. Everybody can contribute to something in their neighborhood. You got bees, you got garden, you got fruits and vegetables. There's all these patches and all these little spots in these neighborhoods that they don't do anything.
You know what I feel like? I feel like the problem with that is most people want the rose without the thorn.
100%. But I would be that guy that's there every day.
No, I know, but this is my criticism with a lot of what I see, in various neighborhoods, which is everybody wants a community vibe. Nobody wants a community.
100%.
Like nobody wants the opposite. Like I talk to a lot of farmers and ranchers, ag people, and I was talking to the president of the Farm Bureau just yesterday. He was like, listen, whenever a farm comes up for lease, people get crazy. They go competitive, right? Whenever a farm comes up for sale, very rare, right? They don't turn over frequently. People go hard. And so you have this inherent competition in the farming world. It's like everybody wants more acres. Everybody wants more water. Like everybody wants a better product, the whole thing. It's like, but if you have a crop that needs to be pulled, and you got like a broken leg or your son got hit by a car or something, like people will come. No.
Oh, okay.
That's the thing. He's like, you are inherently in competition with people because it's a business.
Yeah.
But the community around farming and ag is like, dude, I'll be there. You're going to owe me a pizza. But like, I'll be there. And they bring their own equipment. They bring their own diesel. They like bring their own labor. That's like good. Nobody's negotiating the price beforehand. He's like, you just got to get the potato out of the ground, get it out of the ground, right? Like, here we go. And we're going to work until it's done.
Yep.
And that type of dependency on the surrounding community, like you cannot successfully in the long run do everything with contemporary farming by yourself.
No.
Like you need help. So even though you have this inherent competition, you still have reliance on community. And I think we are just outside, that's an example of like inherent reliance. We don't have that. Like we don't have reliance on our neighbors.
No.
We don't have, and people like, I think people like the idea of it and they like feeling close, but at the end of the day, man, they don't want to be in a position where they rely on other people. And so they just don't engage in stuff.
Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, we have neighbors that have moved in and they've never said a word to anybody in the neighborhood. And it's, it's like, you never know.
Where'd they move from?
You know where they moved from.
You know where they moved from.
You know where they moved from. Where are those people? The dreaded Californians. No,
I know.
No, it's all good.
You know what I was telling somebody the other day? This guy got a hold of me. He's like, dude, what the fuck is with the Californians? They're crazy. And he's like, nothing against you. I'm like, I don't take it personally at all, right? First off, my license says Idaho. So second, I think one of the big problems is, and you would know this, and I know this, that people moving here don't know what Idaho is. That's true. It's 100% true. And, that's one of the points of my podcast, which is like, what the hell is this state? Like, what's happening here? But the other real truthism is that Idahoans don't understand Californians. Like, they don't understand how you could take a totally normal person and get them flipped out and crazy to the point where they'll leave their entire family, their business, everything to move to a state they've never been to.
Yep.
You can't conceptualize what would drive. It's like, I want to look at the Idahoans. It's like, what would it take to get you to move? They'd be like, I'd never move. I'm like, I know. So imagine that. What would it take to get you to move out of Idaho to a state you've never been to and like leave everything? Just conceptualize that and conceptualize what state of mind you'd be in when you make that move. That's what they're in when they move here. Yeah. And if you don't understand that, you're missing the point of why they're moving here. Yeah.
I think the problem, what it comes down to though, like, I don't care where anybody's from. And, I'm from upstate New York. Like who's even from Idaho anymore? Everybody's a transplant now. I think what it comes down to is we have so much pride and we love the state so much and the beauty and what it has to offer. And then you see the trash, you see the disrespect of what's going on in the public lands and everything that just comes along. And I get it. When you're living in these suburbs in California, there's no pride. You don't see people that preaching screaming from the rooftops how proud they are to be a Californian. And so that
doesn't even mean anything. You're not there for a long time. You're there for a good time.
Exactly.
You're there to make money and get the hell out.
And get out. And so I think what it is we look at, it's like, God, like how somebody can disrespect this? How are you just leaving bags of trash at these campsites? And the great example was I was up with my daughters last spring and we were hunting up there and, up in the mountains. And there's this guy in a van, had California license plates, and he's there for like 2 weeks. And cool, whatever. This is why you come here.
Yeah, right.
It's the most beautiful spot. He leaves and the whole campsite was just trashed. He left feces. I mean, he wasn't even like going into the bushes to go take a shit. I mean, it was just toilet paper and feces everywhere, beer cans everywhere. And I'm like, this, right? And for who we are, I'm that dad is like, hey, if you see, we're bringing it off the mountain. If it doesn't belong on the mountain, it comes off the mountain with us. And I always carry those big industrial trash bags, like a couple of them under a seat somewhere. Sure. We filled 2 of those giant construction trash bags of trash from this guy's campsite.
Did you bury his shit or take it home?
I didn't touch any of his shit.
Good.
No.
I was like, God, man.
That's where I draw a line.
I was trash wise, like, you deserve a medal, sir.
No, trash wise, it's coming with me. But as far as that stuff,
terrible.
I'm not dealing with. But it was just like, come on, man. Like just show if everybody just came and had the respect and cool. We have a beautiful state here. It has so much to offer you with the water, the river systems, the mountains. I mean, it's incredible. It's just, that's why I love when they're like, just keep Idaho green, keep it clean. And
yeah, one of the problems that I think other people don't understand too is I was getting some hell from I had this dinner last night. And the Secretary of State was there, and Phil McGrain was giving me a hard time about. They were like, in 1970, that bridge over the Eagle River in Eagle, or over the Boise River, it was like that. That was one lane, not one lane each direction. That was one lane. He's like, and of course he's like giving me a hard time for it. And he's like, we're friends.
Yeah.
And I was like, I get it. He's like, but do you really? Right?
You know what it was like back in the day.
And I was like, Phil, listen. There are 40 million people in that state. Mm-hmm. And like, I'm not a Southern California guy. I'm a Northern Cal. Like, they could be different states. Yep. A lot of people have wanted them to be different states. Like, and not only is there a difference Southern versus Northern, there are a lot of loser people in that state. Mm-hmm. And they come up here with California license plates and shit all over campsites. And then people say, that's a Californian. And it's like, I can't tell you you're wrong, but what I can tell you is we have a lot of losers there. We have a lot of people that struggle with drug addiction. We have, maybe I shouldn't call them losers, but I know a lot, like there are segments of that society where it's, and this was actually one of my great criticisms of it. You have these pockets of hyper successful type A hard charging, like I got a jet kind of people. Right next to people that are barely scraping by. And then those people barely scraping by, some portion of those people like just fall off and can't keep up with it. And you have all of those people moving here. You have the crazy type A that drive me nuts because they're like, I'm gonna move here and make it exactly the way I want. It's like, can you take a minute? Can you just take a breath? But you also have people that are gonna move up here and like shit in campsites. So it's like there's a cultural distinction for it's like, maybe that's a Californian, but that's not a normal person.
No, absolutely not.
Like normal people just don't do that, right? And I don't care where they're from, like, because I've never just like sat next to a campsite while I'm drinking beer, like
all around it. You know?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I think people need to understand that too. Like it's just such a big state. You're going to get the whole mix up here.
For sure. For sure. And I get it. Like when we moved here, we moved from California here. You know, I was stationed at Camp Pendleton, did my time in the military, and when it came to it, and my wife was like, get me out of here. She's like, I want nothing to do with it. And so, yeah, we took a road trip and just drove. It was before the big boom and everything. We didn't even know it was a hot spot at the time. And yeah, we did a huge road trip, drove all the way up the coast, went all the way to Washington, came down, went into Idaho, did all of Idaho, Montana, Wyoming. I mean, we did a huge, we just hit the road one summer and just drove. And yeah, we ended up, and she was like, man, I really like it there. And so we moved here, then all of a sudden everything blew up and we're like, oh shit, like this is the happening spot. This
is the place to be, baby.
This is it. And I get it. Why? I mean, it suits everything that we want to do and have as a family. So it's an incredible state.
It is. And I view it very much as like governance done well. Like there's a lot of push and pull in our state government. We are a one-party state predominantly. I think I know a lot of problems with Democratic policies from California. First off, the Democrats here are not California Democrats. That's important to remember. And second, just categorically, like I think we need more push-pull, right? Because essentially the push-pull is between like the hard right and then the moderate right. And then the Democrats are like all the way on the left. They're like, hey, what about us? And they're like,
nobody, you know, as of now, nobody gives a shit.
And it's like, again, we should have push-pull because like that's the tension. It's like the tension in your relationship with your wife. That's what, or at least in I know I have, you guys have probably a better relationship, but like the tension in my relationship with my, you know what's funny? There's this business character assessment called the Working Genius. You ever heard of it?
No.
Doesn't matter. They have 6 types of working genius, and essentially categorized. It's like stop with the introvert extrovert nonsense, right? So like you have somebody who's like an inventor, and we all essentially know somebody who like always comes up with different ideas. Whether or not the different ideas are even valuable, who knows? It doesn't matter. But like they're coming up with these ideas. Then you have people that are discerners, right? And so discerners can't invent anything, but they know when something's good or bad. They're like, that's trash. It'll never work. And then the inventor's like, well, how do you make it better? They're like, oh, I have no idea. I just know it's trash, right? You have galvanizers, people who are really good getting people behind an issue, a goal, and be like, come on, baby, we can do this. Like it's a softball coach. Like, let's go. You have people that love tenacity genius, people that love, they're like, you give me a to-do list, I fucking tick off every 20 thing. And like, they love doing that. They're like, I'm gonna hit every single one of these things. So you have these different versions. I think I'm an inventing enabling genius. Right. So I help people get better. Like you, I saw one of your clips. I was like, hey bro, like tweak these little things. You can make this even better. Like I can't help it. I'm like, hey, let me help you. Let me help lift you up. And I also like inventing stuff. I'm like, oh, we could do this. Like, that's how I got systematized. My wife is a discerning genius. So like I know if I have an idea and I actually want to know when I'm real serious, like go to her and like, I better steel myself. Cause like, it's going to be real. And if she is game with, if she's like, that looks good. I'm like, okay, that's it. That's the recipe. Don't change anything.
We're going for it.
Yeah. But it's that tension because we she pushes constantly,
Yep.
whether I want her to or not. She pushes constantly on the type of editing, the style of video. That like every creative thing I do, she pushes, and it's that tension that makes a better production. That tension to make me double. So like I think that way the state government, like I don't know how it works. I'm not advocating for more of this, more of that. We need the tension to get the best for the citizens of Idaho.
Absolutely, and we have such a great thing going, and it's working. You know, and obviously we can make some adjustments in certain areas, but yeah, I mean, we love it here, and it's
the best.
It's a great place to be.
Yeah, it's a great place to raise kids too. Yeah, because you were obviously in Southern California, like you saw what it was for kids down there.
Oh, it was horrible. I remember when it was our aha moment of when the wife looked at me, because I'd gotten out of the military. I was stationed there and started a family while I was in the military, and I went straight back to Afghan when I got out, and then when I came back from Afghan, we got a letter from our oldest at the time, and God, she had to have been 5, 6 years old. And they send out this email about how kids, it's very common for them to be watching porn and Googling things on the iPads that the schools are giving them. And my wife looked at me, she's like, absolutely not. Like, this isn't normal. Like, this is.
Wait, back up. So the school was saying.
Sent out an email notifying the parents, like, hey, kids, we are finding kids that are searching pornographic sites on a website.
School administered
iPads.
And they're like, and it's totally normal. Kids are curious.
This is a curious stage. We just want parents to know and to be aware. And my wife looked at me, she's like, this isn't normal. She's like, this is not normal. And this is no. She's like, I'm done.
God.
And she looked at me and she was like, get us out of here. She's like, I'm ready. And she's SoCal born and raised, like Valley girl, freaking, you look at her now and you would never have any idea. I've converted her completely. And besides,
she's eating bear meat off the bone.
I mean, we just had we do bear pot roast not too long ago. So it's funny you say that. We eat a lot of bear actually, but,
why don't you bring me any bear? Like, I'm very thankful you brought me bread. Listen, they both start with B. I'm just saying, I was like, hook it up with some bear, baby.
I mean, I actually got some we can bring you, but yeah, so it's just, I don't know. It was one of those things where we were like, okay, we're out, and that was kind of like the aha moment for us, because she's just like, I don't want our kids raising this. Like, this is not a common thing. And she's like, I'm not going to accept this. This isn't common. She's like, not in our world. And no, that was kind of like what started our clock. And then when we did our road trip and got a job offer, and she was like, we're gone. And I was like, okay. Like, she's very nomadic. I got very lucky there. When I was in Afghan, I called one night home in Afghan, and she's like, hey, I'm selling the house and we're moving. And I'm like on the phone, I'm sitting in some shithole in Afghan. And I'm like, what? Whoa.
What were you a contractor?
I was a contractor at the embassy. And so I call her. I'm like, whoa, like, no, pause. I'm like, where do you want to go? She's like, we're going to Savannah, Georgia. I Googled it. It looks beautiful. I'm like, whoa, like, big time out. I'm from the East Coast. I'm from the Northeast. I go, you've never even been to the East Coast.
Do you know what a cicada is?
Nothing.
Can you spell humidity?
Nothing.
It's gorgeous. We'll get a beautiful house.
Literally born and raised in Irvine and like Sun City. She has never even been to the East Coast except for, New York, where she goes when we go back home. And I'm like, Liz, she's like, I don't care. I'm selling the house and we're moving. She's like, that's where I want to live. I'm like, fuck. All right. Like, I'm like, don't buy anything out there. Just find a place we could rent, because you're not going to like it. And thank God. And everything ended up falling apart. I was praying it would, and it did, because I did not want to move to Georgia.
Man,
so
what a ride or die you are. No, you.
Oh, yeah.
If my wife was like, we're moving, and I'm like, you're going to hate it, and she's like, we're moving anyway, I don't think I would have the foresight to be like, all right, I'm in. Just don't buy.
That's
anything.
just how and I are,
crazy.
though. Like that's
a good play, man.
That's our relationship, And I mean, I've drug her through some shit through my journeys. But yeah, she's one. Like right now, she came to us not so long ago. She's like, I'm ready to get out of here. I'm like, what do you want to do? She's like, let's go back east, because my parents
here.
Yeah.
You guys, you're thinking about moving back east.
We were playing with the idea. My brother, after he passed, I want to get back closer to my parents, and they're getting to that age, and I really don't want to, but I was now like the oldest son, and being able to help my dad, they they splits a lot of wood and they got a lot of work to do on their property. So
just do like every other Idahoan and move his ass out here. That's
I've
what
tried,
everyone
man.
does.
We're established. Like my family, we've been in that area for like 155 years. I mean, we have property that's been our family for that long, and it's tough. You know, I tell him all the time, like, Dad, like, it's fuck the upstate northern border winters up there. I'm like, I just come here. He loves it here. He comes every year and he loves it out here, but it's convincing my mom. I can't get him away from there, what they own. It's beautiful. I can't. They're literally on the St. Lawrence River, right on the Canadian border. And
he's not moving.
They're not going anywhere.
I'm gonna finish out my
He was
days
born and
right
raised.
here.
His mom was born on that island. Our great grandmother was born in Canada. They rushed her over. I mean, there's so much family history there, and there's no leaving.
My father-in-law lives a quarter mile away from where he grew up. So he was born and raised. He was the oldest of 11, and he lived in his house with his 10 siblings and 2 parents until I think like the day he got married.
Really?
And he gets married, and then they move literally a quarter mile away, and they've lived there for the last like 50 years.
Yeah, that's my dad.
And there's a lot of conversation about like, okay, are you guys staying here? Like, what do you know? Because they're getting to that age where there's like, you're in your 70s now. It's like, what's the plan? Dude, he doesn't want to go anywhere. No. He's an attorney. He has like one-man law firm, so he just goes downstairs. They converted the downstairs into an office. So he goes down there. He's like he doesn't see clients anymore. He just, everything is over, email and everything. So he doesn't have to take appointments. He doesn't have to leave his house. The only thing he does to leave his house is go cycling, right? Like, and he's got his cycling buddies, and they go out and they ride, and then he comes back and just goes to bed.
Yep. Some people are built for it, man. Like us as a family, we're like on a 7-8 year cycle, and we're very nomadic. So which is cool. We don't care. We want to experience different things. That was a big reason why we pulled our kids, and we travel a lot. And so we're very flexible and able to do it. And fortunately I got a wife that's just like, fuck it, let's go. And I'm like, all right, look, I'm in.
That's wild. I wouldn't say unfortunate, but I'm very fortunate in that, things are working with the career that I picked now, but there is no moving. Like I live 25 minutes away from the state capitol. I got a second studio downtown 2 blocks away from the Capitol building. Like there's no like Priest Lake, right? I would love to just like go check out Priest Lake, or
you're committed here.
Yeah. Like when my youngest is 8. Okay. So I got another 10 years, and my wife and I talk. It's like, what are we going to do? Like I'll be 52. What are we going to do? It's like, we can move. It's like, not if I'm still working. Like, well, I'm not going anywhere. Or I'd have to figure out something where like, we went up somewhere and then I came back for 3 days and banged out a bunch of interviews. Yeah. But geographically, I've always been tied to my engagement. Like my tutoring career was like, listen, you do in-house tutoring, or you have a classroom. Like there's no going away. Yeah. You can't take your clientele. Like you have community equity in this community only. You go somewhere else, like nobody knows you, which is what happened when I came up here.
Well, and see, so with us, we've been fortunate enough to, everything we've built has been built off of, we could take it anywhere.
Okay, Mr. Smart Pants. Well, I'm glad
we didn't do that intentionally. We didn't do it intentionally.
You had such foresight. Like
zero foresight.
Listen, let's just make sure that when we move next, we just take everything with us, like Dum Matt doesn't do. Okay.
It was not part of the plan, but it's worked out where we,
Yeah, I'm sure you're very happy. I'm so happy that you're happy that you can just go anywhere and make money. Dumb Matt's stuck in this little garage studio. Dude, did you? I won't feel bad if you didn't. Did you see the interview I did with Little? Doesn't matter if you see. I put out a bunch of clips.
No, I started that one.
Yeah, we were talking about fire and water and stuff. It doesn't matter. Like if you weren't really interested in like what the water agreement was and other things, it doesn't matter. But the point is, at one point he made a joke about being in a garage. He's like, well, we're in a garage.
Oh,
I'm aware, Governor.
Thanks.
But it was like, he was like, we need to, grow homegrown businesses, like starting garages like this. I'm like, yeah, I'm aware.
I mean, honestly, this is the greatest thing. You talk to some of these guys and you look where they started. Like I have a company that I work with, and it's a multi-million dollar company. And the guy started in his garage. Yeah. And he just started printing shirts, and he's built it into something today. And I mean, last year they donated $10 million to the veteran community and helped him pay. And it all started in his garage. I mean, I think everybody should start anything. If it's the smallest little side hustle, just, you got to do it. And it's going to be a journey, and you're going to have your ups and downs, but God, man, it's so worth it. Even if you're not trying to scale it to be something that's pulling in millions a day, and it puts an extra $1,000 in your pocket a month.
Right.
Do it. And it's so much fun. And if you could bring your kids along with it, even better.
You know, the other thing, going back to being thankful that it's an adventure, right? Thankful for the adventures. The other thing I've realized is I've grown a great gratitude for the difficulty of it, not from the adventure standpoint, but just like looking at it, it's like, okay, this is so damn hard to do. And again, it takes everything I have and then some.
Yeah.
Like every last bit of juice I have in my head. And I was telling a friend the other day, it's like, thank God it's this hard, because there's nobody on my 6. Like nobody's coming, I don't know. I can't. And again, because it's so hard, it's like whoever comes up behind me or like comes alongside me, they're paying a price that's so astronomical. And it's like, good on you. Like if I meet that person, like, great, let's work this together too. Cause like, you're obviously willing to put it in. I'm willing to put it in. Like, that's great. But good God, man, the heavy lift of getting it off the ground, it's so like, and it's so impossible.
That's where most people quit, I feel like. Yeah. But like you and I could look at each other and be like, hey man, we had a short conversation. You're like, absolutely. Cause you respect the grind that goes into it. And you always hear these motivational speakers and they're like, God, it's been so great. We make millions doing this, this, and this. But like none of them talk about how much it fucking sucked. Yeah. Losing a whole entire audio and visual because you forgot to hit a button and you can't do it again. You can't reenact and can't redo it. It's all organic. Making wrong decisions that are costing you thousands of dollars on a bad decision or partnership. And everybody wants to glorify, oh, we're hustling, we're grinding, we've made it. And it's like, and then everybody must be nice. That's the one thing.
Must be nice.
That is the one thing that you want to talk about. Makes my skin crawl. Man, must be nice. It is fucking nice because you have no idea what the hurdles in the falling flat on our face, having to start over from scratch, losing everything, losing your supplies and content, whatever it is that goes into that business. They don't know that. They don't see it. And I don't expect them to know it, but the people that have started businesses, even if they've failed at it or they've grown it, you always can tell who's ever gone through the trenches of growing something themselves, because it's a mutual respect. You tell me, hey, I got this. And I'm like, fuck, good for you. Like that's how it should be with the support and people that have gone through that journey. They know what it takes, and it's not easy. That's why most businesses fail in the first couple of years, because it's a lot, man. It's a lot of work, but God, it's so much fun and it's so rewarding, and it makes it so much sweeter. It makes it so much sweeter when you start getting the traction. You're like, oh, it's working. And it's from all of that time previously falling, failing, and losing, and getting beat up and stepped on and just used and abused along the way. And then when you're like, oh my God, it's working, then that's the joy that I get from anything that you get to build on your own. That's where it comes down to, is looking back like, God, do you remember when we fucked that up and cost us to start all over again? And you just and you sit back and you talk about those moments and you're like, look where we are now, And so that's the fun part to me. That's why I encourage anybody.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
It's you know what it is? I had, the end of Pursuit of Happiness. Yeah. Will Smith, and he's like on the street. I had one of those moments in December. Like it was like, I'll tell you about it later, but the point is like, I literally bawled in my car for 10 minutes. Like I have never had that level of like, like it was so beautiful. And just to boil down like these endeavors to this little win. And I was just
one little moment,
dude. I couldn't even stop. I was in the car with my wife and she started crying and I was crying, and it was like, I couldn't stop it.
And it was worth everything.
Dude, it made it worth everything.
Everything.
It was worth everything.
Especially to share with your wife, because she sees you. They watch. You got a good wife that's encouraging you and watching you and supporting you. They feel it just as much as we do. If they're not involved, they know what you're putting into it.
Never, to her credit, 1,000 times over, she was never one of those people who are like, why are you doing this? Or like, what are you doing?
Like, no.
Well, they can be. People are like that. People are like that all the time.
To be a good supportive spouse, like you
to have that belief, you know, I mean, and I remember back when I started the first one at the end of 2019, I had no idea what I was like, why. Like my idea for that podcast was like, you know, it would be really cool if our kids could hear who I was at 37 when they're 37, right? They would get an understanding of who I am far better. Because I was thinking about, like, I would have loved to know what my dad was at 37. Like, I want to know what was driving him, what his trials were, like what his lessons were. That was the idea. That doesn't necessitate buying, you know, hundreds of dollars worth of equipment, like spending all this time, all this headspace, like all of these things. But, you know, she understood the process. That was the thing. She understood that it's like, I don't know what this is. We don't know what this is. Right. A friend of mine early on in this podcast in the ranch, I was on like episode 15 and I was like, oh, I'm spending a lot of time on this job. And he's like, you don't have a job. You got a hobby, man. I was like, no, listen, but like, I was like, I know it seems that way.
But hobbies turn into things. Pretty incredible.
And I told that to my wife. She's like, he has no idea who you are. I was like, of course he doesn't. No. We just met like 6 months ago. Like, yeah, he's my friend, of course. But like, yeah, he doesn't know me yet.
Nope.
And like, he doesn't get it. He's also somebody who's never started his own thing. Right. So I was like, you don't understand. And it's fine. Very few people do. More people should. Yep. More people should give it a shot. Because obviously we unleashed the tenacious creative power of people. Great things happen for everybody. Like the consumer wins, we all win.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm the biggest advocate for it. Biggest advocate. It's such an incredible journey. It's gonna suck.
God,
you're gonna question everything if you made right decisions. But I mean, if you can just grind it out for that time period until that little snowball begins to spin, and you look back, and you're like, man, it's pretty awesome.
God, Bam, listen to me. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
I appreciate your show. I appreciate this conversation a lot.
Yeah, man.
I very rarely have an opportunity to talk to somebody like you that understands and is going through it too. You know, so
nice.
God bless you, sir. Your podcast, Wild Chaos. People can find you on Instagram. They can find you on Apple Podcasts, Spotify,
everywhere.
YouTube as well. Yeah, you got a great video setup too.
Thank you.
Check it out, people. Thank you for coming in, sir. Let's do this again.
Yeah, anytime, man.